Welcome to week 2 of Blaze New Trails Academy. Again, I'm Holly and welcome back to the porch. Last week, I had you fill out all of the spreadsheets on all the parks, recreation sites, preserves, all those different things right where you live. Now, I want to make sure that you add beaches and waterways to that if you didn't already, if that's something that you have where you live. You want to make sure you get that on your parks spreadsheet. Now, this week, I want you to add museums to that. Now, I have a spreadsheet just for museums you can print out if you don't want to add it to your parks. And the reason why I want you to add museums of all kinds, art museums, history, regional, local, botanical gardens, all those different things I want you to list on that spreadsheet as well. Now, you might ask, why do I want to do all that? It's all part of the big plan, I promise. But a few things you want to remember about museums is that oftentimes they have some pretty incredible artifacts that you might not see other places, and also some things that could be extinct from the natural world. So you want to make sure that you're able to see that. What we have found too is that a lot of times the docents or the volunteers at the particular museum are probably natives or locals to the area, and they have some really great stories. We've also found that these locations have beautiful gardens right outside the back door, or nature walks into preserves you might not know otherwise. And let's see, you also want to make sure that you document any traveling exhibits that might be coming this next year. Sometimes you're not going to know that until you go to their website and look at traveling exhibits. There can be some pretty cool exhibits coming to a little museum near you. Now, I want to move on to our master calendar. But before I do, I want to share a little background information with you about how we came to homeschool. So, I grew up in a public school mentality. I went to public school all my life, all of my friends did. Many of my friends became educators as well. And so having a family, it was just natural for everyone to go to daycare or preschool. Well, a funny thing happened on our way to creating a family. We suffered 10 years of infertility. So once I had my oldest son, Grayson, it was sort of heartbreaking to me to put him in daycare or in preschool. So I kept him at home. So that started my love of having my son with me and going through life every day. Well, as many of you may know, when he was almost at age 4, we did get the diagnosis that confirmed kind of our suspicions all along that something was wrong. And he had a stroke, most likely before he was born or at his birth. So that sort of changed our perspective on what learning was going to look like for him. So what I did was I started working with him at home to get him ready for kindergarten, like a lot of people do. Then we took him to our local county school board. They wanted to do a battery of testing, of course, that they do with children who may need special needs. And that takes a long time. Then we had our big parent meeting with all the specialists, and their advice actually was, have you ever thought of keeping him at home? Now, I know you wouldn't expect that from your local school board, but that's what happened for us. They said, whatever you're doing at home is working. And although he does have areas of deficit and learning challenges, he's actually above where the kids would be if you put him in kindergarten. So whatever you're doing is working. You might want to consider keeping him at home. So that was really our first introduction to homeschooling, and we've never looked back. We've been doing this for over 10 years, and of course our methods have changed, but it's been a very successful endeavor for us. Now, I did come home. I created a school room. We had a desk complete with a boxed curriculum, the wall calendar, the flag, the whole 9 yards, because I was used to school, and I brought school home. And it was my son who quickly taught me that that wasn't the way for him to learn. And that's what set us off on this path of learning through nature and our community, and how we can take subjects that are important, like the 3 R's, math, reading and writing. We want to bring in other subjects as well. But this method kind of fits in with whatever your plan may be. Now, maybe you don't have a plan yet and you're searching for a method that sort of fits your family. But I want you to know, whatever you choose, make sure that it's right for your children. Because sometimes we can have a different personality and structure of our own that doesn't quite match our children. And then when we homeschool, it's not a very pleasant experience. Now, homeschooling isn't always fabulous, I will tell you that. There's going to be a lot of crazy days and rough days where you want to flag down the yellow school bus. But overall, we want to have a nice structure and an order to our days, but we want to make sure that we're intertwining life and living together and not having school at home. I don't want to be my son's homeschool teacher. I want to be their mother who is teaching them to learn. So that's another way I want you to look back at the questions that we went over in lesson 1 and keep going over those questions as we go through the course and see if your mindset changes a little bit. You can add things to it and take it away, but you can always fit in, if you need to start with a box curriculum to get started in homeschooling, then I advise doing that because it helps you understand how you learn best, what the structure might look like in your home. And then you can take parts and pieces away as you go. So next up, we're going to talk about the master calendar. All right, let's move on to the master calendar. You're going to find this in the very back of your book in the lesson plan section. The lesson plan is in the very back. The master calendar is the last 2 pages of the book. Now, don't worry, if you want a fresh one or you haven't purchased the book yet, there's a place for you to click to print one of your own to get started. Now, the master calendar is where we are going to document all the things that we've been working on in our spreadsheet for the parks and different things like that. And according to the season and the date, you've been writing those on the side. Now, I want you to show you my master list, the spreadsheet that I was working on for the parks. Now, I want you to notice that we'll go over how I spread this out. But our master calendar is really going to be something that we revisit throughout the year. And as we go on through each lesson, I'll explain how that works. So this is what my spreadsheet looked like as I worked it out. I made sure to write the things that were important to me. And if there was any specific event date or season, I wanted to make sure that I listed that in the events. So now how the master calendar comes into play is our calendar has a box for every month. And I want to go over with you just a few months and show you how I want you to fill this in. Okay? We're going to be continuously adding to this master calendar as we go through the course. So when you start up in the top of the boxes so that you have plenty of room. I might have made my squares, should have made my squares bigger. I'm not sure. So on my calendar, for example, in January, I have Blue Springs down here. I have Blue Springs because the manatee come here from all over the country in the wintertime. I live in Florida. Our winter's a little different, so they're here generally between December and March. But I know if we go in January, we're definitely gonna see a high number of manatee in that park. So I have this down for January to make sure that we fit that in sometime in the month. Now, February, Olustee State Park, which is north of here, pretty good ways, has an annual Civil War reenactment. Same weekend every year. We haven't made it yet, but it's on my calendar so I can refer to it year after year. So that sometime, especially if we're working on that history, I know where we could go to find that. Now I want to back up here for a minute because January manatees, what subject is that? That's science. Okay, so February, we've got history going on right here. Now for March, it's usually beautiful weather here in Central Florida, and it's always a great time to go to the Marjorie Keenan Rawlings State Park, which is in the middle of the state. I've always wanted to go there. I haven't made it yet. I think we're going this year though. And I put that in March because Marjorie Keenan Rawlings, she was a Pulitzer Prize winning author. She wrote The Yearling. She also wrote Cross Creek, which I've been reading all of my life. And her writing is phenomenal. So this park is attached to literature. Now, the park actually is her home place, her home, her gardens, the grove, everything is there. They only have those open for a certain part of the season where they have people dressed in period costumes to take you on a tour. So when I go, I want to make sure I'm going to go when they have that offered, because when it gets too hot, they don't have that anymore. Now for April, there's one night a year at Blue Spring where they do a firefly walk. Now, if you live in a northern state, fireflies are pretty regular, and I love seeing them as a kid at my grandparents' place in Alabama, but we don't have them too much here in Florida anymore. I'm not sure if they're making a comeback, but we don't want to miss that one night that you get to go into the park on this firefly walk. So I wanted to be sure that I have that written down for April. That also classifies as science. Now in May, every year at the Stephen Foster State Park is the Folk Festival. We're talking art, music, culture, history, all this over a 3-day weekend every year in May. So I want to make sure that is on my master calendar that I can refer to. Now, do you get where I'm going with this? Anything that has a seasonal period or a specific date, I want you to write it in your master calendar. Now, there is no way possible you're going to get to all of these every year, but this calendar is going to be a reference for your family year after year. Now, after a while, you might have to make a new one, and that's okay. But it gives you a chance to have a glance to see what's happening in your area this particular year and how you can structure your lesson plans and your subjects for the year. Is that going to fit in with curriculum you're already working on? Or if you're going to build curriculum about what's going on in your area, you have your master list to work from. Now, each week we're going to keep adding to this master calendar. And when we're done, this is going to be full of resources right where you live that you can add into what you're doing or create a schedule around this. Now, let's stop and reflect here about what we've already done just in chapter 1 of Blaze New Trails. And you haven't even left your house yet. So number 1, we have listed all the parks and recreation sites, museums, waterways, beaches, anything that's going on in your area. We've listed it on our spreadsheet to kind of look at. Now, not every park is going to end up on your master calendar, and that's okay, because those are the parks that you can kind of visit at any time that don't have something specific going on. So you might not want to put that on your master calendar. It's just you can refer to it on your spreadsheet there. Now, we've also listed community events. We've listed museums, historic spots, things that are going on. Now, from there, we have created the master calendar of events and seasonal opportunities throughout where you live for an entire year. And we've created a starting point for scheduling your lesson plan and curriculum for the year. Now we're going to take a break and come back for part 2 of lesson 2. Now it's time for the active part of chapter 1 in Blaze New Trails. Starting from page 8 all the way up to page 28 are all of the hands-on projects and ideas that you can use year-round. You can do them in the parks or in your own backyard. And I suggest wherever you go, use your amenities and resources that you have listed in your spreadsheets to choose where you'd like to visit. You can always alter the questions on any of the worksheets that we have. You can also add to them if you want to dig a little bit deeper into the subjects or the reason why you're visiting where you're at. Now, in the video below, our Trailblazer kids from the Learning Lifestyle Revival, our membership site, show you how they took page 9 at the park They took it to a local park close by and together with some friends show you how they experienced it right in their own backyard. Now, next on page 12 is our story on tadpoles. You know, unexpected learning can happen anywhere you are if you get out of the way of the curiosity of your own children, which was what we experienced many years ago at a local river. And our tadpole story shares that with you, along with some great book suggestions for you to use if you happen upon this study. Also, in the video below, we had the Margheim family share with us how they use Blaze New Trails in their home. Sarah, the mom, she uses it more as a go-to resource for things that might be happening where they live, such as the tadpole experiment they share with you. You know, she says in the video that she has older children that she's already homeschooled, and now she has a new set of twins that are younger, and she felt like she was losing her spark for natural learning. So she uses Blaze New Trails as just a go-to resource to make sure they're hitting all the things in their area. And the one on tadpoles really made an impact on their family. So there's so many different ways that you can use Blaze New Trails in your home, whether it's right alongside your curriculum or as a go-to resource as a family throughout the year. Next, I want to share with you our Student Companion. You know, the Student Companion is designed for children to use it as their own notebook. It follows the chapters of Blaze New Trails, but inside we've added a lot of extras. We've added going deeper into each subject. So we've kind of layered it with more activities and projects that you can use at your discretion. We have notebooking, we have lap booking, we have artwork in here. And we've done everything so whatever they need is inside this book. We actually hand put these together here at the Giles Frontier because I'm a homeschool mom, and if the supplies aren't ready on hand, I'm either going to skip that project or put it on hold, maybe indefinitely. So we actually put in watercolor paper and cardstock, so anything that we ask of your children, it's going to be in here for you. So at the end of the year, this is a complete record of all the work they've done in Blaze New Trails. For many families, this has been a great resource because there's not extra things that they need to have on hand. Now, we suggest using this right along with the curriculum you're already using if you have older students. If you have younger children, Blaze New Trails and the Student Companion can be a complete year of science for them. Oftentimes people ask, well, how do we differentiate between the ages? If you have young elementary students from kindergarten up through 3rd or 4th grade, just the book Blaze New Trails is quite enough for them for their science. In our home, we found using a science curriculum isn't really necessary up until upper middle school or high school, because if you follow the curiosity of your children, they will be learning hands-on science all around them. Now we've completed Chapter 1 in Blaze New Trails, and I hope this has shown you how to start thinking with a mindset of creating your curriculum and lesson plan around nature and the opportunities around you. Next up, we're going to talk about Chapter 2, Nature Studies, and how to put that into place with Chapter 1, and we're also going to go over the lesson planner in the back and how that can work for you. So we'll see you next week.